last big hurrah was to take them over there and like shuttle them around and do stuff. So it was a lot of work, but totally worth it.
Oh,
It's so nice to like be able to take them around.
you take a lot of pictures.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Like, it's beautiful right now.
That's my word. I'm so lucky with the weather, like sun actually every day, at least part of the day. It's incredible.
Nice. You always have to pack more when the weather's like iffy, right? So,
Yeah. I did do a lot of Airbnbs, so I watched books a lot and I traveled over with just one regular wheelie suitcase and one backpack and that was it.
nice. It's worth it, huh?
Both brought a giant,
Oh, they made up for you.
my mom tried to bring 2 trunks just for herself and another like hand luggage bag. Fortunately, I have, my oldest brother lives in the same town. And, he went over to see them the day before they were supposed to leave, and he just unpacked one of her bags. I was just like, no, 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 you're not taking this, you're not taking that. They left with clean clothes.
Oh.
So,
Thank goodness he was able to do that.
yeah, it was just such a group effort to get them out there. My dad panicked at the last minute and was like, we can't do this. I'm so sorry. I don't, if you wanna go, you can go. And I just called my brother. I'm like, okay, it's time. You need to go.
To prep them.
Yeah. He occasionally has to go over and parent them. You know, that's his role in life now, unfortunately.
Well, we're all gonna, we don't always, but
I mean, there's
It's
you'll
expected.
get to that point, right?
it's expected.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, what an opportunity.
It's great.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
You can join again.
Okay.
Places I had to get back to work, sorry.
No worries. That's right too. I didn't get here nearly as early as I wanted to.
Okay. Enjoy. Recording transcription set to be recorded. It's recording. Okay.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
And screen.
Just had, someone join with the name Awozab.
Or Teams, is it still Teams?
Yeah, and if that person can identify themselves so that we can sign you into the meeting.
Yeah, my name is Amanda Wozab.
They be able to hear. Are they muted or not?
They're muted.
Oh, no, not muted.
My name is Amanda Wozab.
What was that?
Or you can, use the chat. If you can hear me, you can use the chat and then we'll make sure to account for you on the attendance and the minutes. Thank you.
Oh, Paige is saying that they can hear her. But we can't hear.
Oh, folks are talking and we can't hear them. Okay. For folks online, please give us just a minute or two. We're trying to fix the audio problem in the room.
I got her, Amanda Wozab. We'll get on that. For some reason we can't hear.
Did that unmute?
Kelly, do you think that might have done it? Or I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Yes.
Guys, can you hear the one that's virtual right now?
Okay, this should help. Can someone who's virtually participating give us a test?
This is Jackie Frazier doing the test. Can you guys hear us?
I can hear you.
Begin. Excellent. Okay, so let's call this meeting to order then. Thanks all for attending. We'll go down the list for a roll call, asking all the members to say aye for those that are here. I do know Jordan Bennett is not here tonight. Christy Baptiste. We'll loop back. Valerie.
Valerie Hoy is here if you were calling my name. I'm on a dial-in number.
Thanks, Valerie. Asa.
Here.
Carl.
Here.
Kate.
Here.
Mitch.
Here.
Jennifer.
Here.
Andrea.
Here.
And Pamela.
Here.
And just double checking one more time for Christy. We do have a quorum. We can continue on. The next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, this is our agenda for today. We'll be going through some of our regular business as well as FFA. We'll be talking some project updates and I think the bulk of the meeting will probably be talking about visitor center displays. And then wrapping up with a lot of our regular business for planning round meetings and any other discussion. Our next slide, please. Quick edit to the RAB minutes that were sent out. We got a note last night that there was an error in one of the minutes. We're just gonna need to go back to the transcript and figure out exactly who said what at that point and then edit those. So we're gonna be doing that, and then I'll send an edit of the draft back out to the members for us to vote on next time. As they are now, they are incorrect, so. So yeah, please be patient with us while we do that, and, well, we can do the review and approval of those next time. Okay, let's talk about membership. So we did get another application. I can send that out for folks to review. I haven't done that yet, so my first day back in the office for after a couple weeks. But I did want to use that as an opportunity to talk about overall membership of the RAB board. We currently have 10 members. Back when we were working on, kind of deciding who would be our permanent community co-chair, 10 members was kind of the threshold for saying, okay, we're good and we can fully vote on a more permanent community co-chair. One thing we did not talk though is like, would that be kind of the max number we were hoping to see on the board? Were we looking for a larger number? Or did we want to keep going for recruitment? So that's something I thought we could have a good discussion on with the RAD members if there's any thoughts on that. We do have options, some things that we can do in terms of getting to applications. We could always have a wait list for as other members need to resign from the board. We could have a host of folks potentially ready to go. Could also review members on a case by case basis. If there is a particular individual representing a community that we feel is underserved on the board, we could opt to bring them in. It's really up to our community board members. So I want to open that for discussion.
I guess I would say that if 10 is a good number to use, or if it wasn't it 20 is what we had talked about at one point?
20 is what's been recommended as like a max, and it really is kind of dependent on your community and size of the site and that kind of stuff, so.
Because I was thinking in my mind that as long as people are coming to the meetings and participating in what's going on, I don't see that 20 is a bad number, but if you're gonna get in more people that don't show up all the time and don't have anything to talk about, then it's not gonna do any good to have 20 people because they're hit and miss.
Sure.
But I would say if they come and participate, then I would say the more the better.
What's a number that the staff could effectively manage?
As far as supporting like meetings?
Yeah.
I mean, you see the size of this room, like if we had 20 board members all come in, we'd be a little cramped. But in terms of how that like affects the core's like kind of abilities, the regional like where the kind of the hours go with managing
Yeah.
members is that initial training and like site walkthrough and stuff. If we're continuously recruiting, there will definitely be more hours we need to put into that to be doing that at a pretty regular drumbeat. Alternatively, we can opt to have regular times of the year that we do that, but that would mean anyone joining well before that, we need to wait, So there's like pros and cons to different ways of managing that, but that's really the place like hours would go towards in terms of having additional members is the initial onboarding.
How many folks don't attend? Like, this is my third meeting, so I'm wondering, historically, are there folks that are not attending regularly?
RAD members,
Mm-hmm.
so some are virtual.
Right, no, I mean that are not attending at all, like not,
I don't think we have any board members at this moment that have not been regularly participating.
right.
We did have, within the history of this board, which is not very old, I believe we had, I want to say 2 or 3 members. I know there was like a member who initially decided they were no longer going to participate before the board got started. And there were 2 folks who, due to their personal commitments or other like personal things going on, they stopped attending. So not a very large amount. Everyone currently is attending the bulk of the meetings.
I think we should keep it fair. I think 10 is a good number for, I guess, what we're doing. I would be interested with folks that have a lot of experience, but I don't want to pick and choose, because membership is community and but people have different reasons for coming, and serving, so. It's difficult to go like that. I would love someone that has been through this and supports the community too, but
Thoughts from board members that are online right now?
This is Kate. Yeah, I think this is a little tricky since we have had this rolling application and didn't really set any cutoff. So it's tough, I feel like, to make a call when we have a pending application, when we haven't like really communicated about any of that ahead of time. So I'm open to considering the application and, given that we've had a history of folks dropping and needing to drop out, and then like having the discussion about, establishing that, we're no longer accepting applications at the moment, or you can submit an application and we'll put it on file if we have openings or something. But I think, given that we have a pending application, it feels a little funny to just suddenly not consider it, I guess. I'm not sure. That's kind of my first impression.
Mhm.
that's fair.
I completely agree with you. This is Jennifer. I agree with what you said, Kate.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy to go ahead and send that out, to the members, and then we can kind of have this conversation after, that individual's been considered. Any other thoughts from board members?
Valerie here. I do agree with what Kate and Jennifer said. I'm a board member on the Underwood Conservation District. I don't know if this structure would work for our group, but I was an associate board member for about 8 months. They usually have 2 associate board members. You get trained, you participate in the meetings, but aren't able to do a formal vote. And that worked really well for me, so I could understand what the organization was about and whether it was a good fit. Again, I don't. And then what happened is I was an associate member for about 8 months, and another board member for personal reasons needed to resign. And I had been there for 8 months, was trained, had been participating except for voting, and was really familiar with the organization. And again, I don't know if that could be a potential fit for us going forward to do that type of model.
Yeah, we can definitely have that one up for consideration by the community board members. It's ultimately the decision of y'all as the members of how you wanna operate in meetings. But it sounds like most are interested in first considering the application and then making decisions from there. Is that, I guess I'll do a quick poll of, can we get a quick vote of aye if you're in favor of first considering the application and then having further discussion on how many members is appropriate for the board? All of those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Great, appreciate it. Okay, so we'll move forward in that way. I'll have the application out later this week for everyone to consider. And then, you can put together some time for everybody to, meet outside of this venue, if that's still the preferred way of considering applications. Or at the end of the next RAB meeting, that's most preferred. So let's go ahead and move on then. Okay, so jumping right into our project updates. Over on the upland side, we are working on developing the quality assurance project plan. You can see we've added a little graphic on the right side that's showing where we are in the circle process. Hopefully just help orient people over time as to kind of our status at a quick glance. Just to explain the graphic a little bit, that's a very top level view of the circle process. And we're in the remedial investigation. Additionally, you'll see on this one, we have the little yellow box with the non-time critical removal action. That's just indicating that that action of removing contamination from the upland operable unit is going to be part of this remedial investigation phase. The engineering evaluation cost analysis is under development as part of that non-time critical removal action. That's a required document that basically just evaluates the options for the removal action and justifies the documents the justification for that removal action. Oh, I got a message from Jackie that I skipped the FFA update. So Jackie, I apologize. Thank you for letting me know. And I will move back to that at the end of the project update. So okay, so that's basically what's going on with the Upland OU. A lot of stuff under development. So as these move forward, the next step would be to get them out to the regulators, who's already developed, the regulators, and tribes would be reviewing these documents. And then we'd be incorporating their comments. And then after that, there would be the whole. Any questions on that before I move on, our board members?
In the upland areas, what all areas are that?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, is it Bradford Island or is it further up Eagle Creek was the next one up, or is it
Right.
at?
It's the actual like eastern side of Bradford Island, the land portion.
Okay, so the point that we walked down on the way up there.
Yeah, it consists of the landfill, the bulb slope, the pistol range, and then the sandblast area. And those areas that you're talking about going up to Eagle Creek, those are part of the river operable unit.
Okay.
Any other questions before we talk river OU? Great. Let us move on, please. All right, river operable unit. So we have our two phases that we're working under the supplemental remedial investigation. Phase one is this sampling effort that we've had ongoing since earlier this year. Currently, we are waiting for the spillway to close so we can move on to our next start. Sampling will be collecting some sediment traps that are out there right now and deploying new current meters and new sediment traps. And those will collect data from when the spillway is closed, as opposed to the work we've done so far, collecting data from when the spillway. We do have the quality assurance project plan updated to our administrative record now, so that is available for any public member to download and view that. It's also available to check out at the Portland District Library. On the phase two side of things, we have been in development for that next sampling plan, that next quality assurance project plan. It'll detail the sampling that we do under phase two, which will include further down our subsurface, I'm saying the word, Rich, subsurface sampling.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I don't know why my brain didn't think about it. But moving on. So that's a development right now. We do need to get information from the phase one sampling to help us with the development of that plan. The validated results we're supposed to get fairly soon now, mid-June is when we're expecting to get those. And so once we get those, we can continue with the development of that technical approach. And then we can start that review with our regulated methods. Any questions on the river OU side of things?
Or is it just sampling, no implementation, right?
Yeah, it's a sampling to help us determine the nature and extent of the contamination.
Thank you.
Hey, Megan, this is Kate. Just for members of the public, would you mind reviewing those acronyms?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll start at the top. OU means operable unit. It's like a geographical area that we refer to as a certain section that we are performing the circular process on. Those boundaries can change over time, particularly when we're going through this process of determining the nature and extent of contamination. SRN means supplemental remedial investigation. This is the investigation where we're trying to determine the nature and extent of our contamination. Just lost our, there we go. Thank
It
you.
happens.
Multitasking.
But yeah, remedial investigation is the phase that we're in with actually both of our operable units right now. Moving down, UFP, wow, that's a really long one. UFP, I believe, is Uniform Federal Quality Assurance Project Plan. Essentially, a work plan is going to detail the sampling that we'll be doing under that document. And let's see if I missed any. I think that's it for acronyms. Other questions or comments on this slide? All right, great. So before we move on to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about Federal Facility Act. Okay, so the Federal Facility Act has been out for public comment. I was just about to say, Rich, do you have any information on like public comments received?
So, yeah, the closing date for the public comment period for the federal facility agreement was yesterday, the 11th. We received comments from the Yakima Nation and Columbia Riverkeeper. Thank both of those organizations for your comments. I've looked them over. I haven't really had a chance to dig down into them yet, but I'm about to task my whole team with answering them, so we should close that pretty quickly. And that's really all I have right now.
Right.
Yeah, and this is Kate again, just so folks know, big thanks to the public for their involvement. We had thousands of folks sign on to comments in just a short couple of weeks. So just indicative of the high levels of interest in getting this site cleaned up. Thanks.
That's great.
Well, I appreciate you indexing all those comments and not just sending me thousands of comments over.
Yeah.
On a personal level.
Them one at a time.
And thank you for kind of consolidating that and getting those over to us.
Are those comments available to the public to see somewhere, or will they come out later?
They will be, yeah. They'll all be packaged together with the FFA and our, what we'll do is we'll take all the comments and we'll draft responsive summary of whether they should be, or how they would be incorporated or wouldn't be incorporated, and then that would be packaged. All that would be packaged together with our recommendation to the Army Corps, whether there should be any changes to the FFA.
But the public's comments will be there for people.
Yeah, they'll be part of the record. Yeah, absolutely. Not all the comments that Kate got though, but unless she wants to make it public, but all the ones that we received will definitely be made public.
Yeah.
Other questions about FFA? Right. Okay, so we can go ahead and move on to talk about the visitor center displays. Oh, I'm sorry, never mind. I'm just kidding. We're gonna do other project updates now. On the Cascades Island side, we've been working on our preliminary assessment and we have received comments from regulators and tribes. So thanks to all that participated in the review of that document. The court will be incorporating those comments into the preliminary assessment, and that was that revised draft will be provided back to regulators and tribes for them to go through, back check, make sure everything was incorporated correctly. And after that process is complete, we can put that out for public review. Site management plan, so for any not familiar with that term, the site management plan is really big, like kind of technical meat and potatoes schedule of the Federal Facility Act. And under the Federal Facility Act, the Corps is required to revise that every year and provide the draft to regulators and tribes no later than June 30th. So that's coming up fairly quick now. We are working on that revision. We've had some initial conversations already, and we're on track for providing that out.
We got a comment asking about when the revised Cascades preliminary assessment is set to be sent back to the tribes. From Eric Cutler.
Eric, I might have to get back to you on that. A lot of times it does depend on the nature of the comments we get. I'll go ahead and forward that one quickly to Jackie too, if we have a target date that we're shooting for right now.
Yeah, so we have a meeting next week to discuss the comments and to kind of see how long it's going to take. Ultimately, if we're trying to follow this document like any other document that we're kind of trying to execute under the FFA, we need to have that document back and try to resolve comments within 60 days. So that will be the goal.
Okay, thank you very much.
This is Kate.
And then
go ahead.
again, I was gonna point in that after that resolution, because it's a document, is probably one that we would let the RAB look at. It wouldn't necessarily be open for public review.
Oh, that's a good point. Thanks, Jackie.
This is Kate. Megan, just to clarify what you said the Cascade Islands preliminary assessment's getting sent, the tribal feedback will be incorporated, and then the tribes will review to make sure everything was incorporated properly, and then we'll get a look at it. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the Corps is going through the process of going through those comments now. And the next process is revising the document. There can be, of course, like some back and forth of asking.
As I said, yeah,
all that
there
stuff.
may be some dispute resolution, with any of the comments. And like I said, I always say that as a caveat, because I said I haven't talked with the team yet to see if there's any comments where we're like, oh, we think we need to have a discussion to try to resolve it. And those kind of things, but ultimately we'll look through and we'll start addressing comments and providing responses and try to work to resolution of all comments.
Yeah, and any comments that we have questions on, or there's even concern on, that will involve conversations with the relevant party.
Thank you.
Okay, so we talked about the Cascades Island preliminary assessment and the site management plan. We also have been working on this community involvement plan. So we've gotten responses from EPA, Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Thank you. The Oregon Health Authority and Yakima Nation. I believe we have completed revising that document to solve all those comments, and our next step would be putting that back out to those parties to back check their comments. Any questions on the community involvement plan?
Washington State Department of Ecology is not involved?
They were provided for review. We didn't get any comments from them. Yeah.
There was some big transitions there in the last 6-7 months. That might be why it dropped off the week.
I mean, they certainly will get a copy of the revised community involvement plan. So not commenting does not mean we drop you off the list here. You don't get asked.
I had some due outs from them, and I was following up, and I just went sign it and then I found out that it's,
Good to know. And, the community involvement plan is also an evolving document. As changes are needed, we make them. It's a living document, so it doesn't get set in place and then just left for the life of this project. It will evolve as the community's needs to. Any other questions on project updates before we move on? Feel very confident the next slide is visitor center displays. All right, okay, I'm flying Vegas tonight. Okay, so we're back talking about visitor displays. For folks in the room, we do have posters available for you to look at in person if you would like to do so. First, just gonna talk about the very basics of the displays as either a reminder to folks or information for anyone who's not familiar with this particular effort. So our objective, the course objective, is to create displays that we would house at the visitor centers in the Bonneville Dam complex. That includes the Bradford Island Visitor Center on the Oregon side of the river and the Washington Shore Visitor Center complex. What we're really trying to achieve with these displays is we're trying to provide the community and the folks that visit our visitor centers with an understanding that there is a surplus site there, and to give them an understanding of what that human health risk is. The upland, for example, that area it's very close. Those upland areas, they're very close to the Bradford Island Visitor Center. However, folks are not able to access that as part of members. So we want to be able to both ensure folks that they don't have access to certain areas and also let them know about the ways that that contamination is potentially contacted through those fish. What we'd like to do is display those in the fish viewing buildings. I believe that's going to be the best spot to, especially to contact those folks who are there to get fish counts, the ones that are actually going to be fishing in the river, and the ones that are most likely going to encounter contamination or some pathway to contamination. As part of this, we're going to have a literature rack that will include the Oregon Health Authority's fish advisories. That's the Bonneville Resident Fish Advisory. So it's very specific to this area. And it will notify folks not only about kind of what's going on at this site, but also give them a lot of information specifically from the health authority so they understand what risk they could be at. Some considerations that we had for these displays, things that we were, trying to balance as we were developing these. Of course, adding the information about the Bradford Island surplus site to the visitor centers, so people know where that they exist and they're there. We know that for our visitor centers, we have to make something that is easily digestible so that we can take advantage of the limited attention of the visitors. Anything that we put up that is very long or particularly wordy will lose them pretty quickly, and they might move on without really getting much information from our displays. We want to make sure that the language is very simple so that any reading level can understand things. We do have our rangers available, but our rangers are really focused on other safety issues, very immediate safety issues, like drowning and things like that. We're not providing them an education of Bradford Island surplus site because they need to focus on their current job. So these visitor displays, we want to make very easy for people to get some information from them. And then if they pursue more information, they can use the QR codes to access that. Those QR codes are gonna link us to a website where we're gonna have a lot more detail. For comments that we receive on these, the website is gonna be a great tool for incorporating anything that we're not able to fit on the postings or any additional detail that would be a little too much for the posters for our purposes of just getting the word out there to our visitors. See if I missed anything real quick. I think we've talked about space before. I just wanna, kind of hit that one. Space is limited in our visitor centers. There are rotating exhibitions and things that we can have to compete with sometimes. The format that we've chosen for the actual stands, make sure that these are very portable and that they're, those in the room will see that the poster sizes are fairly large, but we'll be able to compact these fairly well such that if there are some rotating displays that put our posters somewhere else, we're gonna have a lot easier time just moving them to another area at the center versus having to put them in storage. The more we can have these out, the better, and the more visitors we have, the more likely there's gonna be other stuff going on at the visitor center and more competition for space. So I just want to confirm that space, it is a concern and we're trying to meet that concern with the format that we put together. Okay, so let's talk about the individual posters. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the draft posters. I'll go through each one and just talk about the overall objective of each particular poster. And then we can kind of dig into the posters themselves. Those in the room are welcome to come up and make markings on the posters. We have some writing utensils and Post-it notes, so feel free, your heart's desire to just go ahead. Next slide, please. This is our first poster. We're providing a project timeline, which just goes through the very basics of the timeline of this project. And just to make it clear, the project timeline is the surplus site timeline. So talking about how contamination was introduced, not intending to provide a comprehensive timeline of the Bonneville area or the area around there. But I think that's really important to talk about the history and the tribal history of this particular site. So we do have a land acknowledgement on this first poster to provide some information about that. And then, of course, we can have more information on the website about the historical uses of this Bonneville Island area. We do have a bit of a background here, just really brief, to supplement what's already in the visitor center. And then this poster, like all the others, has a QR code that will link to our website. For anyone just trying the QR codes now, know that the QR codes to the website itself won't get you anywhere, but the QR code to the Bonneville Dam Fish Advisory will. So I'll point that one out when we get to that. Next slide. All right, so second poster gets into a little more introduction of kind of like what is a surplus site, what is this site? We provide this map of where the site actually is. You can see highlighted in kind of richer colors, the river operable unit as well as the upland operable unit. So site boundaries for folks. It talks about what an operable unit is. We know that that's not normal jargon. So we give some information so that people kind of understand what we're talking about when we discuss those operable units. We talk about the sources of contamination as well as that cleanup process. That's really just going into that circle cleanup process. So very top level terms of educating people on what a cleanup process looks like. And then again, QR codes where they can find more info. Moving on to our last poster. This one might be perhaps the most critical for our folks. It really goes into the Oregon Health Authority's resident fish advisory at Bonneville. It's the sign that you see highlighted on this particular poster that is actually Oregon Health Authority's literature. We're going to provide copies of the different literature that they put out on fish advisories. We'll have fact sheets in different languages available for folks to take away with them. And the QR code that's actually on the sign on the poster will link to OHA's website. That they have a website very specifically for the Bonneville Resident Fish Advisory. So folks will be able to get even more languages if we don't have them available. And they have even more literature that they can review with this website. Back up one, please.
Yes.
So I know our board members have had copies of these sent out to them in the previous RAT meeting. We also have copies in place. If we need to, are we able to pull up copies of posters on our teams and display them if we need to dig in?
I could.
Well, I'll open it up from here for any comments that folks have. Let us know if there's a particular poster that you want to talk about, and we can take the slide back there. Or we can have general conversation as well.
This is Carl. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but do any of the posters note that the site is now formally designated as a Superfund site?
It's now formally formally. I'm sorry, I heard formerly.
Yeah.
So let's see. I need help remembering.
The first
Yeah, so
poster-
just on the first poster, it talks about it being a national priorities list site and discusses the federal facility agreement and again, in very high level. And then when Megan goes over the website slide, that would be again, be able to expand upon that on the website.
Okay, yeah, I see it says site listed on NPL effective April 2022, but that's a little bit jargony for me. I mean, I would suggest Superfund designation may be more familiar and commonly understood by the general public.
Yeah, this is Kate. I agree with Carl. I think at the very least, the word Superfund needs to be added in that first paragraph before the word site after NPL, so that people make that connection. Most folks, I don't think in the general public know that that's, NPL and Superfund are synonymous with each other. So I think it would be good to add that.
And that's something that I'll be honest, I'll have to kind of work with our attorneys because yes, I think they try to want to differentiate it because it's not in the Superfund program because we are the potential responsible party and we are paying for it. So they've asked us to the preference is to call it National Priorities List site. But I completely understand that it's simplified. People understand that more. So it's a comment I will definitely take back to our attorneys to see how we can word it so that again, we want to make it clear to the public. So I will take that note.
Hi, Jackie. This is Victoria, and hi, Kate. Yeah, what Jackie's saying is accurate. We don't want to say that this is a Superfund site because it is not a part of the Superfund program. And I understand your concern. Yes, people are a little more familiar with the Superfund site. We're just worried by using that term, we're actually misleading what it is this site is actually a part of, what program it's operating under.
I'm sorry, I guess maybe I'm confused. Is this not, you're saying that Bradford Island is not a Superfund site?
Correct. It's not a Superfund site because we're not getting that funding for the cleanup program. So it is.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have to push back here. It is a Superfund site.
Yeah.
Superfund tax expired in 1995. From 1995 until just a couple of years ago, there was no Superfund tax. EPA was allocated money and performed the actions under Superfund and then went back and sued PRPs afterwards. The original fund that was set up dried up years ago, yet we still use the terminology Superfund. So because you're not receiving Superfund money, you are listed on the MPL and you are under a federal facility agreement. This is a Superfund site. We can argue semantics here, but it's being key. It's a Superfund site. It is a Superfund site.
Yeah, I mean, it feels really disingenuous to start mincing word. I mean, this is the first time even hearing about that term being problematic. So I appreciate the clarification, Rich. And I think that if the goal here, since this is the visitor center, is to educate the public, and this was a suggestion from the RAB, I think we need to be, I understand that lawyers are going to want to review materials, but the purpose of using common language is to make sure that the public can understand it. And unless you want to commit to adding more space for more exhibits to explain this further, I think we need to be able to use the, actual terminology that the public's familiar with.
Yeah, I think this is good food for thought for the board to come back and talk about, and have more consideration over how we'll handle that on the poster.
Yeah, this is Carl again. I really think, somebody used the word disingenuous. NPL is I don't think is commonly understood. The alternative is adding some type of language like, toxic hazardous waste dumping ground or something like that. I mean, that should be clear enough to the public.
I would support that language.
Yeah, and to be clear, we don't want to mislead the public. The intent from our legal side is to be clear about like what the project is versus isn't. Hearing you, Rich, on that clarification from EPA, I appreciate that. Yeah, let us take this back and we'll have some more conversation internally. Mitch, I know you're about to speak up when Carl came on. Do you want to comment?
Wait, yeah. The couple of things that my concerns are on the posters, I keep hearing visitor center. And so there's no funding to get this information past the visitor center.
These displays are specifically for the visitor center. They're gonna be like big poster displays.
Larger than what we're seeing here.
They're the size of what we're seeing here. And then, we are carrying the comment forward. You had a great suggestion to have, something like this in like bait shops and other places that pictures would be. So when we are able to finish the revisions of these posters, one of the next steps that we want to take in addition to the website is to have a smaller version that we could distribute to bait shops and similar, and also be providing copies of that literature from the organization.
So the one thing that when I went into Portland and looked at this, Cabela's, Portland's warehouse, bait shops, and the thing that I found really odd is nobody even knows that this is going on.
Mhm.
And it's like, they're going like, what's Superfund site? What's Bradford Island? So the information isn't getting out to the people, and I think having it just in the visitor center isn't really getting that hurdle out there to everybody. And the other one that I had concerns about that other people have mentioned too is the one yellow one that talks about the resident fish. Yeah. And the concern of these fish markets selling fish fresh caught fish, which granted the salmon, this deal really aren't targeted, but they also sell sturgeon at those places. And people don't know that where that fish was caught at, but if the public did know, like, hey, if you're eating a sturgeon out of Montego Temple, you might not want to eat that.
Yeah.
And, but nobody, the information, I mean, it's a great start, but from what I'm getting back, everybody tells me they have no idea about Bradford Island.
Yeah, so I'll briefly kind of go to a separate but related to effort, because that I think will help answer your concern and others' concern. Oregon Health Authority's Fish Advisory, they had revised that in, I can't remember exactly when they revised that, but one of the things the Corps is doing is we worked with the Oregon Health Authority and then Washington's Health Authority, as well as some of the other local counties. And we're providing them prints of OHA's literature. They have in turn worked with their own communities to kind of help determine other organizations, what those could use, who wants a print, basically. So we'll be distributing that information to them once it's finished the print. And that will go out to our partners there. They'll distribute on to their partners as well. The Corps has also ordered a number of these prints that we'll be able to distribute in different places. That can include things like bait shop. We can have copies in the visitor center of Corps, so we can have them elsewhere. We know that there is a desire to put them at different common fishing grounds for the bulletin boards, and that's some of the locations that we're looking. And there's also established copies of the old fish advisories at a couple key places, specific fishing grounds around the Bonneville area, and we are replacing those with the updated version. So those are going to be like very large metal signs, like 2-3 feet long. So there's a number of places that we're trying to especially get this fish advisory.
Yeah, and it just seemed to me like it would make sense, like your local post offices around that are really centrally close to here, our local courthouses and our city halls to have these posters all placed in them. Seems like would be, I don't know if there's any money in the budget to do that, but I mean, it seems like a great idea though. Because the more we can get this out there to the public, the more better they're on what's going on, I think.
Sure.
I'd love to add to that comment. I went back over to Eagle Creek Lookout and found active fishing sites with fish on hooks. And I know it's probably our local tribes people. And so I would like signs, you know,
That's why.
in the areas that really need to.
You know, there's a bulletin board in that campground area that we're gonna be, or at least we're requesting to put signs up for.
I went there right before I joined and there was a sign. I went back and the sign wasn't there. And it's just a piece of papers, you know, tacked to a piece of a tree. So it wasn't something that would stay there. So I recommend, especially because our local tribes people probably eat what they catch. That's how they live and they don't know, you know, they don't know what's going on there. So I would really like something big and flashy there. I have another comment, about the signs here. Nothing really spells out what PCBs do to people or fish. I looked at all of the QR codes to see where it brought you, you know, to see if it mentioned anything about why we're doing this in the first place, what's so dangerous about it. So the PCBs, I looked on the EPA site and there's a great explanation of what it does to folks. So I think that's important to include. So people know, oh, there may be some PCBs and it may be contaminated depending on how much you intake, but really it doesn't say cancer, reproductive effects, neurological effects. I mean, it doesn't list out things that really do the damage.
Yeah.
So maybe something with the QR code, it doesn't have to spell out, actually, it would be better if it spelled out, warning. Something of the sort, like around the local fishing areas. But for the greater public and in a nice, area that says it, I think a QR code would be fine.
Sure.
And also chats as well.
I'll
Yeah,
quickly point out,
I was gonna jump in. Dana's got some question. I answered the first one, just that, were the poster signs, like, have you seen the sign? Is that gonna go up in relation to us putting up the signs that we've agreed to put around? And yes, we'll do that in parallel. She was asking about the production timeline. I know, Megan, you're just getting back. I know Jacobs was producing some of those, and you were gonna review those before they started producing everything to make sure everything looked okay, but I don't know.
I apologize, I
That's
can't
happened
have a status on that in this meeting. It is my first day back and I wasn't able to get to that specific status, but just before I left, Jacob was sending over test prints of those to review. And so that'll be part of my my work this week, is to get that reviewed and make sure we're good to go. So we're very close. Appreciate folks patience on this. We want to
But
make
once
sure
we-
before we order thousands of prints that we've got them correct.
Yeah, so once Megan looks that over, we'll check with Jacobs and follow back with you, Dana, on when you guys can expect to receive those. And that'll be the same for, our other folks, Multnomah County Health Department and Washington folks that have got different sets that we're printing for them too. So we'll follow up on that.
That would be great. Thank
do.
you. I was going to add, if you would like another set of eyes on the proofs, I would be happy to review all of the print materials. And I think my understanding is that Jacobs might have an office in downtown Portland. And I would be happy to make it over somewhere in person to also have eyes on those materials. Pretty familiar with what they look like and, appropriate weights and printing specifications for the paper and all of that. So if that would be helpful, I would be happy to provide an extra set of eyes on those before they go into production. And like you said, we make thousands of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Kate. I would definitely encourage you to take Dana up on that offer. There's OHA did a lot of really good work convening a fish advisory group that came up with a lot of really great outreach ideas. And I mean, as far as I know, we're ready to go on the outreach. We're just waiting on the core for those materials to come through. So it would be great if we could get that going. And I agree with what Mitch was saying, and Pamela as well, about the need to get the signage out beyond, the contamination area. For starters, we've talked about this before, definitely need signs there, but it's best not to tell someone, their drink is poisoned before they put their straw in, right? So let's get to fisher people before they have their lines in the water and let them know where it's safe to fish. And so yeah, I agree with getting the signage out there, getting some. I've gone out there myself to put up fish advisories and fishing spots, and it is not something that we have capacity to continue doing, but having some metal signs out there that can't be taken down would be super helpful. And yeah, I think that would be really important.
Yeah, and I wanted to say a little bit more on that. We do have a pretty comprehensive outreach plan that we are ready to implement. I unfortunately can't see who has spoken up on this in the room. The camera kind of moves around and focuses on different people at different times. So I did hear the idea to put a sign up at the Eagle Creek campground, and that's definitely on our list. And I just wanted to say that I've been in touch with the folks that run the campground and the general different recreation amenities there. So that's very much on our radar and part of the plan to have materials there, as well as a lot of different places around the site, as well as in Cascade Locks and on the other side of the river. And it sounds like there's a lot of interest on getting outreach going about the fish advisory, and I would be happy to talk more about that at a future RAB meeting if people are interested in kind of getting an overview about all of the places that we have planned to distribute the materials and just what our plan looks like. And the last thing I'll say is that we are always open to more suggestions and ideas for ways to get the word out. So if there are businesses or, specific partners that anyone on the RAB or on this meeting would suggest that we provide materials to, present to, partner with in some capacity, please feel free to let me know. We're always open to ideas.
Thank you. And I'll just clarify that it is Eagle Creek Overlook is where the tribes people are fishing. They have landings and tools and everything, so it is an active site.
Do we have metal fish advisory signs?
We do, yeah. So the Corps has a couple existing ones. We're also ordering additional ones for our partners, for the OHA, for Multnomah County, Multnomah County, specifically Cressida. I think Washington did as well. So there'll be a number of metal signs, or like, there's another material we've ordered, like polyacrylic or something similar. But things that are not paper, we do have on areas.
If I could get 5, I can give them to Public Works, they can put them on our boat launches. It'd be something easy to do.
Get a note on that.
I know the Cascade Locks boat launch would probably be good because it's so close.
This is Kate
Do
again.
you want
Oh, are we still
Go
doing
ahead,
feedback?
Kate.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just also wanted to second what Pamela said about the health impacts of PCBs and how important it is to communicate that. The way this is written is kind of, there's not a lot of urgency about the real threat that exists. And I think in addition to adding some information about the public or the, potential health effects, identifying that there's some of the highest PCB levels in the nation have been found here to really drive through that point that this is more contaminated than even other Superfund sites that have PCBs. I think that would be important to incorporate too. I have some other notes too, and I don't know if it'd be easy or for me to put them in writing or to kind of rattle them off to capture them, or how best to do that.
Right. This is our big topic, so you are welcome to discuss them here. And of course, you're also welcome to send them directly to me and we can review those on the Corps side. It's really whatever you like. I was actually about to go back to Pam's comment as well regarding PCBs. And of course, we'll take that comment back about request to incorporate that on the sign itself. I wanted to let people know, just for their awareness, the QR code that takes you to Oregon Health Authority's website has some additional information about that. They actually specifically have some literature about pregnancy and infants as being the most vulnerable members for being affected by PCBs. They have some information available about that. And that will be some of the prints that are being provided to the different organizations, and that the Corps will be printing. And
It didn't list anything. It did say those, but in my mind, if I'm not pregnant, do I not worry about it? So it needs to be a more comprehensive.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I just wanted to add that because I think we don't have a lot of folks really aware of all the stuff that OHA has made available to this online, that is.
David Crosby has a comment in the chat. We're in touch with Cascade Locks boat launch and plans to install several signs there. And then it says for new RAB members, all of our materials are available online. These are the same materials the Corps will be producing, which OHA will then distribute to partners. such as Eagle Creek, Overlook, Cascade Locks, Boat Marina, clinics, etc. And then she added a link in the chat. Thank you, Dana.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. Do we have any other comments in the chat at the moment? Right.
So the Washington State Health Department, they're not concerned with this at all from the Washington side?
Oh, no, they've been involved as well. Oregon Health Authority put together the literature. The Washington Department of Health was involved in, communicating to different agencies, different like local organizations and stuff, and determining what kind of needs they had in their own community. And then they provided that to ourselves at the core, and we'll be distributing materials to that as well.
I just don't hear their name come up at all, so I'm curious.
Yeah.
I can add to that.
Yeah,
I can add to that a bit as well. Yes, we are in close partnership with Washington Department of Health, the Bonneville Dam Advisory, as well as the Middle Columbia Advisory and the Lower Columbia Advisory, which border the Bonneville Dam, are co-issued actually between our two agencies on both sides of the Columbia River. So we work very closely with them. You'll see on the materials that I linked from that webpage in the chat, it actually has both the OHA logo and the Washington Department of Health logo. So producing these was very much a collaboration with them. We held a series of planning meetings to get feedback from various partners on how these materials should look and what they should say, how the fish advisory should be messaged. So these materials were, they were not developed by OHA alone. We engaged with Yakima Nation, Washington Department of Health, Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, various county health departments, Columbia Riverkeeper, Department of Fish and Wildlife. These are just the agencies off the top of my head, so I'm probably missing some. But we worked with a big group to develop these materials and review drafts and improve them along the way, including the sign design that you see on the Visitor Center poster. And then, so regarding distribution of these resources, we will also be working with Washington Department of Health and other partners to then distribute these once they are produced. So they are very much part of the conversation and a close partner of ours.
Great clarification, thank you.
I should also add really quick that it was a designer actually at the Department of Health in Washington that actually designed these materials. So they are beautiful, and the credit is all to Washington's Department of Health for that.
Even our public health has been distributing these in their channels. It's an update of the Board of Health meeting also.
Great. Any other questions, comments regarding, I guess I'll take it back to our visitor center display. Other comments, other requested edits?
This is Kate. I've got a few.
Yeah, Kate, let's go for it.
So I did mention this last month, but just want to make sure we capture that it's a little confusing to have the direction of the timeline going the opposite direction of the flow of the river. And it might be nice to orient that in line with the flow of the river so that the arrow's going in the direction of the flow of the river.
We have had a lot of opposing comments regarding the timeline and directions, arrows and stuff. Every time we get one comment recommending something, we get an opposite comment recommending something else. So it's something we've kind of been struggling with. I will say this particular graphic is something that had been already produced, and the reason we chose it was to leverage work that had already been completed to help minimize the costs on this. But hear you on the flow of the river.
Or at least like,
yeah,
at least adding some arrows in the river that show the flow or something, because if we want people to know where it is in space, like, and we don't want to disorient them to make them think that the place we're warning them about is somewhere else.
And we actually had an arrow before showing the flow of the river on that graphic and had comments that it was confusing. So that's
Yeah.
been our is like, how do we make this clear to everyone?
I mean, I think I'm not a graphic designer, but I'm pretty sure there's a way for a graphic designer to easily flip the white arrow in the text piece of it. But
Okay, if you're looking at an old version, the new version does
Oh,
not have an arrow. It was removed.
oh, I am looking at the version that was emailed, so that could be.
Look on your slides or the presentation slide.
Well, I'm looking at the emailed slides.
Okay, what about on Teams?
Okay, okay, there we go. I see.
That
now.
white
Okay.
arrow is no longer on the graphic.
Okay. I thank you for pointing that out because that got removed from the email version. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
So-
second slide, we try to give a little more perspective on like where this is. In terms of like where the site is, helping people orient to it. So that's where we have the, that north kind of facing, picture of the aqua lagoons and the dam complex itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then this is a grammar question, and maybe I'm just asking for a double check on capitalizing site throughout on page 1, and then also in the second under the land acknowledgement, capitalizing river and land in the middle there. I'm just wondering and site at the bottom. I don't know if that if those should be capitalized for correct grammars. So maybe site.
Well, this is I was gonna say, Kate, this is Rich. Well, from EPA's perspective, the site usually is capitalized when we talk about a Superfund site.
Okay. That's
But I can speak about the land acknowledgement, the river and land.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
I know when it's part of the whole phrase, it's capitalized, like Bradford Island Superfund site. I just wasn't sure if when you're just saying the site, if that's the way it's done, then that's great.
Yeah, it's a shorthand way for us to note that that we're talking about the Superfund site.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then let's see, I'm just reading my notes real quick. On the fish advisory page, the third page, I'm just wondering if we want to highlight the do not eat piece a little more somewhere, since it's pretty notable to have a do not eat advisory. I know it says it in the graphic itself, but maybe somewhere in the kind of like headline, we could incorporate that language to kind of draw attention to it not being, because that's different than the other, like the Mid-Columbia advisory, right? Which is.
Yeah, it is different. Do you think a different color of that specific line would stand out sufficiently? And it's certainly something we can play.
Yeah,
Like,
something like that.
like
I think
caps, like or bold in caps or something.
Yeah, something like that, just to kind of like, so it kind of draws people attention to look a little bit closer, maybe.
Great suggestion.
And
In the
then
third paragraph.
And then, yeah, I think I'll pause there. I think it might be a bit much to ask that, since considering budgeting and all that, to identify the Corps as the responsible polluter. But maybe that's asking too much. Because it seems just kind of like the way it's written, it's very much, oh, this just happened because back in the day, that's how everybody did things. And I think that there's a lot more, I think people might understand the Corps' involvement more in like the cleanup and, you know, being a party of the FFA if they understood that where, like how this all happened. And it might make sense why the Corps is working to clean it up, kind of thing. But I also
No,
understand.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good comment. I think I've got a couple ideas on my head on maybe how we can address that. So I'll think about that a little bit more, but we'll take that back for sure.
Cool, thanks.
Kate, did you have anything else that you wanted to go through, or you want to pause there? Continue pause there.
Yeah, I think that's it. Everything else is kind of half baked. I mean, I think Mitch kind of mentioned just like we have a name recognition problem with the site, and a lot of folks don't know where we're talking about until they hear Bonneville Dam. And so I just wonder for recognition if we should like highlight the Bonneville Dam connection a little bit more somehow, but I don't really know the best way to do that, but just because I know this name recognition has been a problem for this site.
No, I think again, Kate, I think I can almost loop that back into your previous comment. You know, with the Corps being the responsible party, I think there's probably an easy way for us to at least, again, maybe on the posters, it's maybe seems more of a quick mention, but again, obviously we'd be able to go in depth a bit more on the website, but I think we can probably try to find a way to address that.
Cool.
There's a comment from Eric Cutler, poster number 1 under 1980s, add S to remain. Wanted the group to know.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and other comments on our posters, other comments from our board members via any voting, non-voting members have other comments on these for the talks.
I guess the one thing that I keep asking is, we know or have a timeline when there should be something done by, it's gonna actually be ready to go out.
As far as
Dates that-
distributing these?
Yeah,
Gotcha. I don't have a date that I'm trying to get to. It's really about getting these
The language.
finalized first.
Yeah.
Before we can get them for it, yeah. But yeah, we are aware that we have to get out quickly, and also the quicker we can produce these, and obviously like the last day we're putting towards them, so the cheaper they are to produce overall.
Right.
And so of course, we understand how we're concerned to be efficient about this. I think I heard Kate.
Yeah, I remembered one. Just in the land acknowledgement, I just wanted to support Yakima Nation's request to include the term since time immemorial. And I think there might be a slight grammar adjustment once that term is included. I think in the beginning it says USACE acknowledges that, and then insert since time immemorial. Just wanted to support that request that was made.
Thanks, Kate. Do we have any comments from non-board members of the public that have any questions or thoughts about these posters? Anything in our chat from our public members or public attendees?
Can I say something about land and river in response to Kate's comment about uppercase land and river?
Sure.
In researching land acknowledgements, noticing that Native peoples have been uppercasing land and river, and that's why they're like that. It was intentional. So just to piggyback off what Rich was saying about site updates, but we didn't talk about land.
Right,
So
yeah.
that was intentional, Kate.
Thanks,
Um,
Kelly. I appreciate the clarification.
So let's talk a little bit more about the website. If we can go back. So I just wanted to recap, we do have a number of comments, and of course, we're gonna go through our comments we should receive today. To see how we can incorporate different things into these, make particular items more clear, make these more suitable for the visitor center. We do know that there is a lot of information that we want to have available to the public, and so that's where the website's gonna come in. Our focus right now is to finish the development of these posters so that we can get them printed, so that we can get them out to the visitor center. And try to take advantage of, you know, the busy season that we're in now as soon as we can. But these bulleted areas that are on our screens now, these are kind of the different very high level areas we're going to hit on the website. So it's including expanding the information that's already there, providing more site history, and then we include the tribal history and importance in the site, providing more information about the Federal Facility Act and site involvement. And then, you know, we can have opportunity on this website because it'll be very easy and very cheap to update. We can keep progress listed on this site. So people will only just kind of get an understanding of, you know, what was printed at one time, but also get an idea of like, okay, well, what's the Corps actually doing? Where is EPA, the state's involvement? How are the tribes involved? What's actually going on? All that information we want to be able to make available. And then kind of talking about next steps, so folks have a better understanding of the process, not only what we've completed so far, but what we're moving on to next. So those are kind of the high level areas. As we start developing this, it'll be similar to the visitor displays. We'll be bringing it back to the RAB for review, for review and input. And, you know, of course, also giving opportunity for our regulators, our tribes to provide their input as well. I know we don't have anything to really review on the website so far today, but any questions and comments regarding the website?
I was just wondering on the website, like on the first poster, for example, on the bullet points where it calls out the dates and stuff. It would be possible on the website to, like, when the Bonneville Dam went in, have like an aerial photo showing the area where it was at, and then when you get to the 40s or whatever, it talks about it. And then the 50s, the Pistol Range landfill thing, if there could expand to like an aerial photo of where this area is at in 1950.
Gotcha,
Like an older, like a, not so much a recent photo, but as the
Yeah.
dates come up, this thing, if there couldn't be something attached that shows the landfill in 1980s, it was closed. Where was the landfill in 1980 and what did it look like in 1980?
Yeah. So like historical photos to give people an idea of what this site looked like over the time that contamination was introduced, or different areas of contamination were open, closed.
Yeah, it seems like it kind of put perspective on where the areas are and where, because you can see today, anybody go on Google Earth and they can see the old photo and then they go to Google Earth and say, okay, now I see where we're at. And, but I think it'd be interesting to see what some of these older photos would project on.
Yeah, I agree with that idea, and even like including, I know there's some photos around of like the waste that's been removed, maybe some of like the electrical equipment or like the transformers or things like that.
Yeah, that's the other one I was gonna talk about is when we hear, like when I hear the word transformers that were dumped over the face of the dam, which I don't know if it's true or not, but when I hear that, I think of one that's hanging on the telephone pole. And I'm pretty confident that that isn't what got dumped over the base of the dam. So a picture of what really got dumped over the base of the dam so the public could see the size of these things that were dumped over, I think would be really important for the public information to know what really went on there.
Yeah, I think those are great ideas and, another area we can kind of expand with photos is as we're posting updates to our progress, we can have photos available of kind of just visually the work that's going on the site.
Yeah. The activity, the areas that it's happening in.
Yeah. Any other initial ideas on the website? It's a great idea.
We're about to go.
You cut out.
Was that Carl? We lost your audio in the room here.
He did say in the chat that he has to leave in a few minutes.
I see. Carl, if you had any comments and you're not able to get your audio back, please feel free to email me with ideas, comments, anything you like, of course.
Okay, thank you.
We just got you back. All right, thanks, Carl.
I have a request that's a follow-up to Mitch's comment last time. Instead of us doing research about lemon fills, is it possible for us to get, or even on the website, a list of the landfills that items has been sent to? Disposal tickets or anything like that that could show, you know, all the different areas that were disposed of those items.
So I think we're going back to conversations we had where there were questions about the possibility of contamination being moved offsite. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna ask about, Mitch was asking about, items perhaps being in different landfills here, like, I guess it's like a wives' tale or something, you know, that's happened. But instead of doing that, we could get in front of it and say, this is what was disposed of, this is where it was.
Yeah.
And that
The
would
area that we identify as like new area of concern, for example, we can definitely identify on the website as we have with those. So for example, as we move along with Cascades Island, we expect that to be brought in as a potential operable unit in the future. We can add more information to our website about.
I'm meaning historical too.
And I think what you're meaning is that through Army Corps' history and documentation, there must be a file somewhere that says we shipped stuff to wherever offsite, not so much one particular landfill that we want to look at or whatever, but Army Corps, do you think would have a history of shipping offsite, some kind of a load ticket, trip ticket that went to some other place than on the facility like Army Corps owns at the dam?
I do
think that's
recall,
what you're
yeah,
asking,
I
isn't it?
remember asking if the electrical equipment or things that were found, if they were actually disposed of in a site that took waste, hazardous waste, and you confirmed, yes, that it was taken to
Right.
A place that accepts hazardous waste.
Oh.
So maybe,
Already.
yeah,
So,
our website.
I'm gonna jump in here. I think what I'm understanding kind of the question is again, how did we determine where we looked for contamination? And that also includes if there's a question of where it was disposed of. I think all of that would realistically be captured in the preliminary assessment, which again, kind of looks at, you know, what information shows, you know, it would have assessed, you know, do we think that there was a chance that there was contamination, you know, due to activities? based on any documentation. There's always like interviews and stuff involved. That seems like the place that, and like I said, it's, since we're in the RI phase and it's been going on so long, I have not dived into that preliminary assessment. But that's normally where that kind of initially would have been captured.
Okay, and then I guess even to follow up with that, when we did the tour, you had on-site RC, RA hazardous waste storage on site. What, do you know what's stored there?
So you said RA hazardous waste.
RC, RA.
Resource Conservation Recovery Act, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the statute that, well, so RCRA was made because Superfund sites are generally because there are no records, right? So RCRA was created as a cradle to grave statute that said, okay, you have this hazardous waste, you created it through a process. And so you have to monitor, you have to track it the entire time until you put it into the appropriate landfill. So that was in response to things like the Valley of the Drones, where somebody said, hey, I got a whole bunch of land, you just come dump all your stuff here, and there's no records for that. So when it comes to these Superfund sites, I can say that hazardous waste in a municipal landfill or in some closed landfill is a nightmare scenario, because you don't know when it was shipped out. You got a general idea, but if you have a landfill that may be 20, 30 acres size landfill, old municipal landfills, operating for 20, 30 years, they can get pretty big. Where in that landfill would be the material that was taken specifically from a site to that area? At what point in time was that? So it's really difficult to figure that kind of stuff out. The one thing I would say about at least Bonneville Dam area is that the Army Corps owned Hamilton Island and was using that as a landfill. So the idea that they would take material and pay for it to be put into another landfill when they had available land right there that they could just take it and dump it into, seems like the more logical history that happened there,
Yeah,
from my
I would
own
agree.
opinion. Now, there
On-site
could be, right, at Hamilton Island, yeah.
No, I mean, on-site when we did this for at Frankfurt Island.
Oh, you mean,
have a
okay, so
contained
the
area.
building
Yeah,
has
so no,
waste.
so
Yeah,
to
that's-
answer Pamela's
Used
question,
oil, things like that, usually anything that, if there's like, well, good, Jackie, you can go ahead and say that if you want.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I speak generally about RCRA hazardous
yeah,
waste.
so no, to
Thank
answer
you.
Pamela's question, they'll probably have, solvents and things like that and oil, and those are managed again under RCRA because it's, ongoing operations. So the Portland district, kind of a different group at the core, that's their responsibility to make sure that they're, following their RCRA requirements and permits. We could definitely, I could get a official list just to make it clear what they're keeping in their hazardous waste storage area. But I don't know all of them offhand.
Yeah, that's fine. I was suggesting put it on the website, go public.
Most facilities have a RCRA designated hazardous waste storage area. Through various, whether they're a small quantity generator or a large quantity generator depends on how much they actually ship out a year or in a given month. And that all depends on, and that determines what types of controls that they need in place, fire suppression, alarms, things like that. So, but most facilities that use solvents and things like that, they'll have that. Almost, well, I would say every military base I've ever been to has at least one.
Yeah.
And then most other facilities has one or two, or satellite areas too. It's common. It's very common.
Okay, any other thoughts on this from our members before we move on? We'll definitely have a lot more opportunities to talk about the website, so this this will not be your only time to think about it for sure. Alrighty, so we have 2 upcoming meetings. We both plan to be hybrid, so in person here at Cascade Locks and also with a virtual option. Those are July 9th and 13th August. We have a number of potential topics that we could be doing. One thing that I'm tracking we need to accomplish is we have a number of new members who we need to provide some training to about the Restoration Advisory Board in general and what the different roles are on that board. So we do want to schedule that. One thing we could opt to do if folks want to do this is we could have training in lieu of one of our scheduled meetings or an upcoming meeting. I do know it can be really hard during the workday because this is not your official job to make time for this. So that's something we could consider. Cascade's Renewal Transmission Project is a small update on where we are there. I have actually been able to get in touch with those folks. We're gonna have a short phone call closer to the end of the month to start getting some information on them about how it may or may not impact Bradford Island. And then we can kind of bring some information back from there and go forward. If there's additional need at that time or additional requests at that time for more information from other folks, we can reach out again about potentially bringing them in. But we should have some more info to share by the end, or excuse me, not by the end, by the next meeting.
The thing that really concerned me about the Cascade Renewal Project is you couldn't get a clear answer from them. Is this the only one they have planned? I think this is a breakthrough project that when they get this done, there's gonna be plans for several more. And that's something,
Renewal transmission project
Yes.
in general, okay.
yeah, Siemens Energy is in the background on this. So I think once they get this done, there's gonna be multiple ones behind. That's where I think the big.
Hey Megan, this is Kate. I wonder if I could add to, for your phone call, when you talk to them, asking what the long-term plan is after the lifetime of the transmission line, like what the plan would be after
Long-term maintenance and stuff like that.
maintenance, and then like once it's reached its like lifetime of use, like are they just going to leave it in the river? Do they remove it? What's kind of like the long-term plan there? Do they sell it to someone else?
Yeah, that's another question they didn't really answer clearly, and they just keep reiterating the fact it has a 30-year lifespan.
Okay.
Right,
So
what
that's why
happens after 30 years?
Yeah.
I'll take a note on that and we can have that conversation. Other topics that have been suggested, the offsite information gathering, so this is the one talking about any information of contamination being moved from Bradford Island offsite. I believe that's folks on the RAB that are looking into that, mentioned my numbers correctly.
I've been trying to dig into it, but as Rich said, nobody holds any records, so
Yeah.
there ain't really much you can find.
Mhm.
It's a story that I keep getting told.
Right. And then, project next steps, this was requested that we do this one after the Federal Facility Act is in effect. So that'll be one of our near-term meetings. Are there any other potential topics that folks would like to add to this list?
I was wondering on the pistol range, if some, I don't know, if somebody can discuss today or somewhere add it to the next meeting, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out, is it really a super fun type of a cleanup, or is it just because it's inside of the area? I'm trying to understand the lead from the shooting of the pistols and rifles and stuff in there compared to the lead that's on the bottom of the river from fishing. So my thought is, my guess is the pistol range has become a target because it's inside of the upland or whatever area already, so it's gonna get cleaned up regardless. It's not so much posing this huge hazard because it was a pistol range, or is there something more to it?
So I'll ask, Jackie or Rich to fill in a little more, but I believe it's that the amount of lead that was identified there exceeds the.
Yeah, it's whether it's leachable or not, you know, it's in there, but you know, lead shot, you get shot in there and then it just kind of percolates down, but yeah, it's common in pistol ranges and rifle ranges, nowadays for them to just send soldiers out there as sifters. And they go out there and they just dig up the dirt and then they sift all the lead shots out and then they go pick up all their brass and then, you know, that's how they do it. Unfortunately, there are no soldiers out there. But when even we said, let's just go make a picnic of it, we can all go out there with some shovels and hard hats and dig it up. But it is part of the process, so.
But that's, I mean, the question I guess that I'm asking is, let's say this wasn't set inside of the Bradford Island cleanup, it wouldn't be a target that EPA would go after.
Not EPA, no. It has to reach a certain level before it's like put on the national priorities list. You know, it starts off with, you know, the municipality, the city cleans up an area and then the county and then the state, and then it goes all the way up to the federal. So, you know, an individual pistol range wouldn't reach that.
Because this on that is just more because it's just inside.
Right. So when we talk about like the site itself, you have an overall risk. So everything from the lead shot to the bolt slope, everything kind of gets put into the whole risk determination. So yeah, an individual site, maybe not, you know.
I know I've read quite a few studies where people are talking about the lead contamination that's on the bottom of the Columbia River at Bonneville Dam Pool from all the sturgeon fishing. There's like tons and tons and tons of lead laying on the bottom of that river. And there's been some talk about it leaching, but I don't know enough to know about it. I just read up some stuff about it. People that did studies on it, and it is an issue. But then I see the pistol shooting range, and I asked that day about it. It was because of the lead possibly leaching into the river. And I'm thinking, well, the river bottom's covered in it over there on the Washington side. I don't know about the Oregon side, but I know I've lost a ton of lead out there myself fishing. So
no, it's fairly
And
common thing.
As I say, and in
Go
some
ahead.
areas, it can be that the risk is because the risk is to human health, and sometimes it's ecological, and sometimes it's both, depending on the levels and kind of the exposure pathways. All of that kind of gets looked at to determine whether there's risk associated with a particular area.
yeah, but more than likely though, is what I'm gathering is if this pistol range was not inside of the Bradford, it would not be on the radar.
I mean, I'd have to
Not-
look. I mean,
not me.
there is risk associated with the area.
I think more, if you look at it differently, if there's a site, somebody owns a site and it's a shotgun, you know, site, and they don't clean up the shells, and they try to sell that site, and there are thousands of shells, it has to be, I mean, you know, they have.
Yeah,
You have to get it, cleaned up. If it's not cleaned up from the previous, and you get a prospective purchaser agreement, or, you know, there are different things that you have to do to make sure that the land is clean before you sell something. And to that point, I'm wondering how much shotguns or shells were there, because I have noticed, and I've actually went to our local museum person to ask if there were any other shooting ranges around there, and she said she thought there were. But if you go to Government Cove down here, and even I found it on Blackberry Beach at Cascade Lots, there are shotgun shells on the ground. And if you go to Government Cove, there are hundreds of shotgun shells on the jetty that goes out. And I saw a Chinese guy there fishing, you know, and caught a fish. I thought, you know, there are tons, I mean, like hundreds of them of shotgun shells. So I was wondering Could it have possibly been swept back, or is it from a different shooting range, or?
Oh, you're asking if it's been swept back from Bradford Island?
Yeah, like, is it possible that it could have been?
I mean,
I can speak to some of this. Before I ran for public office, I was part of a weapons instruction business, and we went down to the SHOT Show, and I drew short straw and drew some of the environmental classes in the morning for our business. And I was glad I did, because they were very enlightening on some of the information that was shared there. And I think some of the areas of these pistol ranges where people frequent shooting pistols and rifles are going to be future disasters. Because I mean, it is unbelievable the data they had. And we immediately changed our business model from going to purchase land for a range to going to container ranges for that reason, because we did not want to deal with the future environmental impact of owning land and having firearm usage there. And that's when I stepped back from the business.
I was gonna say, and this
Yeah, and
particular pistol range, it was just they had a small guard shack and they just, kind of just had informal target practice. It wasn't like a publicly used pistol range or anything like that.
Yeah, and the other thing is the amount of lead you can get inhaled shooting the weapons. That's another thing, is that we had another contract selling filtration devices to the military, because all of us in special forces now have lead in our bones from the amount of shooting we did in the military. So, just FYI, and that's just for breathing it. So, these are things we didn't know 20 years ago that now, as you learn the new data and the new science on it, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
yeah, so to your question, based on the orientation of this range, I would expect there to be a significant amount of contamination going
Down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, as we continue to investigate that site, we are looking for that nature and extent of the contamination. So we're in that process of determining, if there's any migration. But that is part of our process.
Okay, great, that's comforting, thank you.
I will say that at other military installations that are on Superflex, that are also, their ranges are also fall under the cleanup category too, right? If you have a training area, say Fort Benning or something like that, on a Superfund site, they still make the soldiers go out there and clean up the lead shots and stuff afterwards because of the environmental regulations. But if it's say, Edwards Air Force Base in California or another military base, then those ranges are looked at in the same lens as the pistol range here at Bradford Island. So there's been, you go to some areas where you have, hundreds of square kilometers worth of, bombing ranges that you have to go out there and identify where exactly did these bombs land. And then you got to go send people out there and EOD to go out there and make sure and just pick up old used bombs basically. And we still have to do that there too. And then they can be completely away from the water source too. So it's not necessarily that it's impacting water or anything like that. It's that it is a great human health concern. And EPA, and EPA's stance, there is no safe level for lead exposure.
Yeah. And, this is where children are playing, and even in Blackberry Beach, it's clear that it's washing over somewhere. I'm not saying it's back, but just wondering if that was a possibility.
So only 3 sites that don't have to report it.
Right.
So our last 10 minutes here, last 10 minutes. I want to pull us back for any other potential topics that our board members have been thinking about they might want to have us talk about in future meetings. Okay, I'll open it up real quick for any public attendees, if there's any questions that have been in your mind that you might like to see us discuss. Okay. We'll continue working on these lists of potential topics, and of course, for our members, if you have ideas in between meetings, feel free to email me. Let's talk a little bit about upcoming meetings. So one thing we're gonna do at the conclusion of this meeting is we want to put out a little bit of a short survey to basically all of our public attendees to kind of get a little bit of a temperature of the room on, a couple things, but primarily, how is Teams working versus Zoom? For public members, how do they feel about the frequency of the meetings? Is this working well for them? And also, are there any specific thoughts about hybrid versus virtual only? So far, we've been doing hybrid from spring to fall, and then virtual only in the winter. So we want to check in with our public attendees on whether that's working well for them or if they have any other thoughts. One thing I'll say in terms of frequency that could be a concern from a public perspective is the amount of resources that are spent for each meeting. Obviously, the more meetings we have, the more resources have to go through that. And then the more hybrid meetings we have, the more resources have to go for in-person participation from the core and to bring our contractor sales help support. So those might be things that they're thinking of, and we want to kind of get their feedback on that. And of course, we'll be opening this up to RAD members as well to give your feedback on that. But we also have almost eight or so minutes left that we can take any feedback from our board members on meeting frequency or future meetings. So what we showed on the slide, we showed a slightly different drumbeat of an every other. We want to see as we're moving towards the FFA being in effect, is that a desire to alter the meeting frequency or not?
So the October, December, we voted on the July and August, correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
those are
December,
both set meetings that we have.
and then you're suggesting, or who's suggesting that we go to every other month?
So it's a question of whether that would be something we want to do as we're approaching this period of the FFA being in effect. That was one of the initial, not all, but one of the initial concerns of meeting, wanting to meet monthly, was that we did not have a signed FFA.
Will there be, I guess the thing that I wonder about is there enough information though? To have it every month, is there really little information? It'd be better to go to every other month, that way you can compile the information, get the studies back and.
And there was a little bit of concern about that, I think last time, I think it was Jordan was saying mentioning that now that we've been doing this a little while, folks are starting to get a better idea of just how slow the circle process moves. So that's definitely a consideration as members.
It's really not worth it to drive up here for a 20-minute meeting
Sure.
and then it's over. But if we just waited another month, then there'd be more stuff. And plus more of the studies and research would have hopefully came in that could be discussed at that point, so.
I think it would depend on what we have, so maybe to make sure that we stay on track, we meet until these are posted. And then perhaps we decide after the first phase 2 is done, then we can reconvene after the phase 2, or base it on things that we want to get done, or.
Yeah, and I'll add that, setting any meeting frequency, whether it was monthly or otherwise, certainly wouldn't preclude us from calling more ad hoc meetings. So if we go to every other, but we realize we have something sooner, we could call a meeting, in between.
Yeah, yes. So maybe we done to quarterly, and if we have something hot coming up that we want, done, or we want to hear about, then we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll say, and I know some folks have been around, I know they've heard me say this like a broken record, but typically RABs are quarterly, or twice a year. This is a bit more active site, so I don't necessarily think twice a year is appropriate. But quarterly allows us a little bit more time in between to prepare as well. And like I said, there's always a lot of stuff going on in the background, but not necessarily a lot that we can discuss. And every quarterly, we'd have a better chance of having more to update on at that point. Again, food for
Also, Dan Crosby has a comment, future topics. OHA is happy to offer a refresher on the fish advisories and our outreach plan. We're also open to, I think she meant, we're also open to presenting at the RAB trainings as well. Okay. Thanks, Dana. And then Eric Cutler wanted to know if the meeting recording will be distributed to the email list. And Eric, it's posted on the Army Corps website of all the recordings. So you can just check the website.
Yeah.
John's in charge of that.
Specifically the RAB site, and then they get posted to the admin record too, I believe. Megan, I know we post the minutes and the slides, but I can't remember if the video gets posted there. We just have been keeping those on our RAB webpage.
Right.
The RAB.
Yeah, John is telling me that it's on the RAB.
It's on the ground.
Okay.
Last
Okay.
Okay. Any other final thoughts on meeting frequency? We have 2 headsets, so we don't need to vote if we don't want to at this time.
I'm good with the way that it is.
Yeah, this is Kate. I'd like to push the conversation over and try to see if we can get more folks on board, like a meeting where more RAB members are in attendance. I think we're missing a few folks right now.
Sorry, Kate, in the room, we enjoyed a little bit of sound interference with a train going by outside. Can I ask you to repeat that one time for us? I don't think I caught it all.
Yeah, I was just, what was I saying? I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, postponing the conversation until we have a larger number of RAB members in attendance. I think we've lost a couple folks.
I gotcha. Okay, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, yeah, we can definitely talk about this at the next meeting, no problem. If no one has anything that they want to bring up as a motion, we can just kind of continue towards our regular open forum period. Which will maybe be a minute long. All right, so hearing no motions, we'll go to just open discussion. Any additional comments from our REV members, be them voting or non-voting members? Any additional comments from our public attendees? Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda today. Do we have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to close.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All right, the meeting is now adjourned. Appreciate everyone for another productive, excellent meeting. Thank you so much.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sending me that Port of Skamania information. I forwarded it on to,